What were some of the things that shocked you? I know there's some things that shocked you in this study. There always are. These aha moments.
Yeah, total aha moments. Well, okay, so all the secrets shocked me.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the things we're going to cover, those were all quite surprising to me. But big picture, one of the things that was the most shocking was that these work if only one person did them.
Yeah.
That was huge to me. Out of these 13, there's only one that requires 2 people.
That's amazing.
Like all of the others, it is this massive impact if just one person starts this direction.
Welcome back to Season 4 of Married with Benefits. I'm your host, Brian Goins, and I started this podcast a few years back because I really did believe that God wants us to enjoy the spouse of our youth. That, as one of my friends like to say, you don't have to be miserable in your own home, and that we could learn from each other and find out what are those things that great couples do to experience the benefits that God intended for marriage. This season especially, I'm excited because we're going to learn from the marriage pros, those that are consistently rated as some of the highly happiest couples on the planet. We're going to discover what are their best practices, what do they do consistently so that they can really enjoy the benefits that come with saying, I do. This season, we're going to be joined with renowned author, marriage author, and Harvard-trained researcher Shaunti Feldhahn. And if you joined us for any of the other previous seasons, you'll remember her. She was one of the featured co-hosts. And we're going to be unpacking her book, The Surprising Secrets of Highly Happy Marriages. You know, one thing that's cool about this season is that in addition to being a podcast, we're also putting all of the episodes on YouTube. And so if you're more of a visual learner, why don't you go ahead and subscribe to the FamilyLife YouTube channel? You can hit that bell and you'll be notified every time that a new episode drops. Okay, enough opening banner. Let's get into the long-awaited, much-anticipated Season 4 of Married with Benefits. Welcome back to Married with Benefits. This is Season 4, which I cannot believe we're already into four seasons. And you hear that laugh. That is Shaunti Feldhahn. She's been on the other 3 seasons of Married with Benefits. And, you know, Shaunti, as I was thinking, you know, you're a Harvard-trained researcher, great author, speaker, good friend now, especially as we've been going through this for the past few years. And it occurs to me, one of the reasons why we wanted to do this podcast is that so many of us, when we got married, we didn't want 5 years from now to be saying, gosh, I dream of the day where I just resent you, you know, where we never do anything fun anymore. Like, none of us got married for that. I mean, God said it is not good for a person to be alone. He wanted us to experience the joys of companionship, the same fellowship that's in the Trinity. You know, God the Father,
absolutely.
Jesus the Son, Holy Spirit, they're in Trinity, and the marriage is supposed to reflect that image. It's not just happiness for happiness' sake. It really is about reflecting the joy and the fellowship and the communion that you see in the Trinity. And when actually couples experience that joy of saying, I do, they reflect that love to a greater world, and the invisible God actually they get a taste of the invisible God. They get to taste and see that he is good, that this love, this agape love, this unconditional love, covenant love is possible. And so that's why I've loved doing these seasons, that every single one of these too. I feel like have been pointing couples back to the fact that you actually can be and experience joy in your marriage to love the one that you're with, as the old folk song went.
Well, one of the things that I know some people have started to ask, you know, one of our good friends, Gary Thomas, wrote a book, Sacred Marriage, and, you know, about, you know, maybe marriage is designed to make us holy rather than to make us happy. And so people are like, you know, I literally had somebody rebuke me on stage once where a pastor said, marriage is designed to make us holy, not happy. And I mean, I didn't say anything on stage. I just, you know, kind of nodded. And I thought, no, actually, I'm pretty sure it's door number 3, both.
Yeah.
It's like,
why not?
It's supposed to, if it's supposed to reflect the closeness of the members of the Trinity, pretty sure that Jesus and God the Father and Holy Spirit aren't like arguing with each other.
Right.
And like, you know, we're never going to get there, you know, in this human broken world. But doggone it, we can try.
Yeah. And marriage does unpack and help us see the selfishness that we never saw. I heard someone once said, if you don't like change, then you won't like marriage. If you don't like to serve, then you're not going to like marriage. If you got married thinking you're never going to change, you're never going to serve the other person, die to self, then you won't actually experience joy.
Well,
right?
and if you got married thinking the other person is going to make you happy, no.
Yeah, you're going to be solely disappointed.
Right. This is about how can you two be happy in your marriage.
Yeah. And this season, as people are going to see, we're going to talk about how not just being happy, but actually highly happy
Yes.
is possible. And so before we jump into that, some of you might have joined us from the first 3 seasons that we had of Married with Benefits, where we unpacked a lot of questions. And all of those were actually based on a lot of the material and research that you discovered. You're a Harvard-trained researcher, which I love that you actually like science and data. That just, I get tired head even thinking about looking at data sets and charts and all that kind of stuff. You get jazzed
I love it.
by that.
I get totally jazzed.
I'm so glad. And you were able to use all of that, leverage it for women only, for men only, and then the secrets of sex and marriage. All of those books were incredibly helpful. But Jen gave me this book, and she's like, you have got to read this, the latest one by Shaunti. And this is years ago. This is probably, I don't know, when did this come out?
2014.
Yeah, 2014.
Yep.
So this is probably
10
about,
years old
probably 8 or 9 years ago that she gave this to me. The Surprising Secrets of Highly Happy Marriages. And I was just, first of all, I'm frustrated at the title because every time I try to recommend the book, I'm like, The Surprising Secrets of I can't even get it out. But there's a reason that we'll come to about why you said we've got to have highly happy in the title.
Yes.
Which is a tongue twister and it's hard to say. But when she gave it to me, what struck me is the subtitle, the little things that make a big difference. And you told me the other day that really has become your mission in life.
It has been. That's now the tag phrase for our entire ministry, our entire business is digging out the little things that make a big difference to help people thrive, right, in their lives and relationships.
And I think that's so encouraging, especially for us to realize that it's not always the big ticket items that wreck a marriage, right?
Right. That's one of the big misunderstandings, right? We all have this tendency to think that, it's those big things like somebody's got an addiction issue or whatever. And those happen. But those aren't usually the majority of the marriage problems. Like what's usually causing the issue is you have a husband and wife who really care about each other, right? And they're trying really hard, but they don't realize maybe they don't know some of these things. They've got, different habits that aren't working. And so they're trying hard in the wrong areas and they're missing each other.
Yeah.
Or even trying hard and they're hurting one another and would never intend to. And so the key here is to try to identify those things that really matter so you can try hard in the right areas.
Oh, I love that. To try hard in the right areas.
And it's suddenly everything just works better. And there's so much more freedom and so much more delight. And sort of basically it's the best possible incentive to continue.
And what I like is little things doesn't necessarily just mean easy things, or there's one
Not
easy. In fact, we're going to talk about some of them are, and we'll talk, and that's what I like about it is a lot of what we're going to share in this season. They are simple things to do. They may not be simple things to repeat because they don't come naturally. A lot of them
do not come naturally.
They don't come naturally. But I think a lot of us, especially as guys, we tend to look for that magic bullet. That one thing that we could do, that one anniversary trip, that one, if I could just buy her the right thing, and we look for that easy button just to fix everything. And what you end up discovering is, and what we'll talk about is, it's actually just a series of small little things done repeatedly over time.
Small decisions, small actions.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
And that's how we change. So when you think about this and about why you even decided to do it, what was it that got you even on this path of trying to discover these secrets of highly happy marriages?
It's actually what got me on the path is a lot of what we're going to be talking about today in this episode, which is this research into how do you change something? Like, how do you change a marriage? Or how do you change your mind? Like, what does that look like? And I was reading this book called Switch.
Oh, yeah. Read it.
You've read it.
Yeah, the Heath brothers. Yeah.
Chip and Dan Heath brothers, Stanford. They have that sort of research-based approach, and they had unpacked how do you change something, whether it's your marriage or a department at work. And one of the things that they said hit me so hard because they said we so often will, in order to change something, we try to focus on what needs to be changed, like the problems, But if that's all you do, you're only focusing on the problems. And instead, they talk about the importance of looking at the bright spots, looking at the role models, who is doing it right, and sort of really examining where you want to go. And I thought, wow, that is so often what we do in marriage. We dig into the problems, we surface them, we try to figure out what's going wrong so we can fix them. That's a lot of what counseling does, for example. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. It's very helpful. It's very important, very needed. But again, if that's all we're doing, we're only focusing on the problems. And I thought, if you want to look like Jesus, you study Jesus. You don't study the Pharisees.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So, okay, where do we want to go in marriage? Well, I want to look like that. I want to look like these couples that are just so happy in marriage and peaceful and just the type of person you see a little 80-year-old couple walking along the road holding hands. And you're like, aw, I want to be like that. Okay. So let's study those people and what are they doing differently?
Right. And I like what you said with Jesus. Like Jesus said, follow me. It is this sense of, it was so much about modeling, about imitate. Paul says, imitate me as I imitate Christ. There is this discipleship model of and yes, do we find learnings and teachings? Are there moments where Jesus says, don't do this and do this? But
oh, sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
so but he is going, there are certain sets of things that I do, habits, sayings, all of those things that I do, I want you to do those things too.
Yeah.
Here's how I'm going to pray. Our Father who art in heaven, he gives us a prayer. So it's like, if you want to know, and too often we go, oh, I don't pray enough. I don't do this when prayer. I don't know what to say in prayer. And Jesus is like, well, here's a prayer.
You go.
You can start with this. And once you do that over time, it becomes like second nature.
Well, it's like sports, right? We were talking earlier about the fact that, you played sports in high school.
I know. Of course you can tell.
Of course. Absolutely. And you played basketball.
I was a great athlete in my own mind.
Well, I'm quite sure that there was more than that.
Yeah.
But talking about anyone who's ever done anything in the sort of the sports world, you know that you're not kind of going, oh, I'm like examining my fellow high school basketball players.
Right.
Like, no.
Right. Yeah, because they were lame too. They were like, I did not have a poster of Morgan Brick. Morgan, I don't know if he's ever going to listen to this, but he was a basketball player in high school. It's like, I did not put his poster on my wall going, I can't wait to be.
Morgan.
Yeah, Morgan, great player. He was a good guy. I think he actually played in college. I didn't play in college, so he might have gone to that second level. No, but I had Jordan. I had Michael Jordan. I had him leaping from the foul line and, just do it right underneath, or, and it was be like Mike.
Exactly. It was sort of, it was basically anyone who wants to get better at anything that they're doing, any skill that you want to build. You look at the people that are doing it really, really well and you examine, what is it? We can do the exact same thing. What better skill is there than us building the skill of having a great marriage? And
so what you do in this book is you really give us what did the pros in marriage do?
The professionals, the NFL,
so if we had posters,
the NBA,
and you did enough of them, like you did an incredible amount of research. So we're not just looking at one or two people. There's quite a few that you drew. You found these principles of these seem to all be consistent principles from the pros of, if you want to have a great marriage, a highly happy marriage, you're going to do these types of things. And so how did you determine who these pros were?
People always ask me that. Yeah. Like, how do you decide who's a happy marriage, right? Like, because it's a legitimate question.
It seems a little subjective.
So the way we did it was to not be subjective. We always do, for people who aren't familiar with our research, all of our studies are all based on nationally representative surveys. We do a lot of work and interviews and focus groups and pilot surveys with different groups. And then we actually hire a survey company, do a big nationally representative survey. And in this case, it was what's called a matched pair survey, which is, it's all anonymous. So and the couple doesn't know like what each other said, but we know that this particular husband is married to this particular wife. So we can compare their answers, right? And so what we did on this one was we basically, in the middle of this big survey, we had this one question that was, in the middle. It looked like just another question. And it was actually the key, like, filter question.
And most people aren't going to realize that when they're doing it, right?
No one would know that this was like the key question, right? And it said something to the degree of, are you generally happy in your marriage these days and enjoying being married? Okay. So basic question. And so we gave them 5 answers. And one answer was, the number one was, yes, exclamation point. Yes, I'm happy in my marriage and enjoying being married. The number 2 was, yes, most of the time. Okay. So mostly happy.
Mostly happy.
Yeah. Number 3 was right down the middle. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Number 4 was no, not really. And number 5 was no, exclamation point. Okay. And so what we did was, if the husband and the wife, not knowing what each other would say, they had no way of knowing, if the husband and the wife both answered yes, exclamation point, those are the people that I wanted to talk to. Those are the people that I wanted to compare to everybody else. So that was our number one group. We had 3 groups that we were comparing.
And that was we call that highly happy.
Highly happy marriages.
That was or you call them the
pros.
Yes with an exclamation point.
We call them the yes couples, right? So those are our pros. Those are the people who have.
Those are the posters that are on our wall.
Those are the posters on our wall, exactly. Group number 2 was the happy couples. And now this was where if one or both of them said 1 or 2, yes, exclamation point, or yes, most of the time, but neither person put 3, 4, or 5.
Okay.
Neither person said sometimes. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Because you can have one spouse say, absolutely, we're so happy. And if the other person goes, meh.
Right.
You wouldn't necessarily call that a truly happy couple, okay? So group number 2.
Somebody's just not that aware of their surroundings.
Unfortunately, yes. So that's group number 2, the happy couples. Okay, so we have the highly happy, and then we have the happy couples. And then everyone else where one or both people said 3, 4, or 5, said sometimes or no, not really. That's the so-so or the struggling couples. And so that's how we did that, that comparison. And basically what we did with this national survey was like, what are the differences?
Yeah.
What is group number 1 doing that is even completely different from group number 2?
So you found there was this massive difference between the highly happy and just the happy.
It was shocking.
Really?
It was shocking to me what the highly happy couples did that was so different. It's like the difference of somebody in a pro athlete position. You might look at somebody in a college athlete and someone who's a pro, and if you're not sort of aware of it, you might think, oh, they're about the same.
Yeah, they're great. And if you're going to, especially D1, if you make D1 college level,
you're pretty good.
You're really good at it. You're an amazing athlete, but only 2% of D1 athletes will make it to the pros. So there is a massive gap.
difference.
And,
Now, thankfully, in our marriages, there's actually, I think it was 35% of the couples were in this highly happy group. I have to look that number up, but it's some magnitude like that. And that's encouraging.
That is encouraging.
it's
That's a third.
A pretty
just
big
over a third,
group,
that would say highly happy.
But the difference between that group and the happy couples was astounding. There is something that matters here that we can learn.
Yeah. So what excites me, we're going to go through every single one of the secrets and a bonus one. You only, the publisher was like, no, we're only going to do 12 because that's a round number.
Yeah, pretty much.
But there was one that did not make that we're going to actually unpack as well.
We are.
So we're going to have 13. But before we get into that, I thought it would be really helpful for us just to talk about the change process, because we all want to be pros and it's going to require change. I was in high school and I recognized I did not have the skill level to be a pro when it came to basketball. I was going to just accidentally become a pro. Or anything you learn, a musical instrument, you learn a dance, you learn anything that you're trying to get good at, you actually have to adopt skills that you don't normally do, that you aren't naturally doing. So we want to talk about what that process is, what that change process is. So as we listen to this series, we're not just taking let's just now do this habit. Let's do this habit. Let's do this thing. It's going to be, there's probably some mind things that need to happen.
Correct. This is not just spaghetti against a wall.
Exactly.
There has to be a process.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this first principle, which you alluded to, is that we are intentionally looking forward, not going to be looking back. And it's that difference between coaching a marriage and counseling a marriage.
Correct. And that actually, I think, is really important for us to say here as we talk about, what leads to change. We do need to acknowledge both of those things. Both counseling and coaching lead to change, but they go about it very differently. And so I want to make sure that people know we're going to be using one of those and not the other. So counseling, you're looking back, you're digging into the issues. Like we said, very important. But the coaching model is basically like, okay, that's there. But we're going to actually just spend the time. What do you do differently?
Right.
What does this look like? How do you create what you want? And so one of the things that we would say is there are going to be couples listening to this or who want to listen to this that really, they need to dig into those issues first. There is something that they need to move beyond before they can move forward. I was talking to a therapist just last week in one of my other research interviews, because the research is always ongoing.
It's what you do.
That's what I do. And one of the things she was talking about is she was a very specialized trauma therapist for very complex trauma. And we all know that, for example, if somebody was sexually abused as a child, that can create some pretty complex trauma in marriage. And she was saying a lot of her patients, a lot of her clients, they have to dig into that before they can really move forward. Otherwise, they're stuck. So, okay, if you're listening to this and you go, you know what, I kind of am in that category. Well, okay, dig into that a little bit first. Do that work, and then maybe listen to this in 6 months.
Right.
Right? Because we don't want to minimize that. For some people, that is needed.
Exactly. And there's a difference between playing hurt and playing injured. All of us, I wrote a book called Playing Hurt, and it's really all about the fact that, for me, I love those stories of athletes that have played through pain. They're out there on the court, they suffered from whatever, but they're like, the team is more important than my pain. But there's a difference between just playing hurt and if you truly have a broken ankle or you have something that's significant. And so, it's one thing to go, we bruise each other's egos, we starve each other's libidos, we just do things that are from our default patterns that aren't helpful and go, okay, I can play through some of that pain and get to a better marriage. It's another thing to say, I've got some addiction or abuse or broken trust. That's playing injured. And you might want to handle that, deal with that. And at the same time, this series can be helpful, but knowing that we've got to be looking backward to fix where some of that, we're going to be focused on looking forward.
I mean, just to say it bluntly, if you have an abusive spouse, if your spouse has really, truly broken trust in your marriage, that's not going to be fixed by, hey, let's look at the secrets of the happiest couples and see what we can do.
Yeah, let's do a book study.
It might actually help, right? Again, it might put you in a better place at some point.
Right.
But you do have to maybe work on that stuff first. Like your ankle analogy. Some places you need actual surgery.
You do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I like what you say about that story about that couple that says we want to start creating the marriage we want to be. You were talking to a couple and they're like, we want to create the marriage we want to be. We got to stop focusing on the past. And I think that's going to help the vast majority of couples. The reason why I think a lot of their marriages are struggling is they keep focusing on what they see happening that's wrong in their marriage. And what you're saying is, okay, well, if we have a vision of what's broken, do we have a vision of what's good, of what's great? And so that's what we're going to be starting to paint this picture of. Let's look forward, put a poster on our wall. We've got these great examples of pros that have done it right, done it well consistently over time. Let's start mimicking their moves and see what that does in our marriage. So that's principle 1. Quick interruption right now. I've always said that if you want to go fast in life, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And I want to go the distance in my marriage. I'm sure you do as well. And so that's why I'm so excited to talk to you about The Art of Marriage. The Art of Marriage has literally helped millions of couples around the world. And we've just reimagined it here at Family Life. It is a 6-part video series that can be used as a small group. It can be used as an event. You can take a couple couples and go to a weekend retreat, anything like that. And there is nothing better for your marriage than to get around with other couples and actually dive into God's Word and discover the benefits of saying I do. And so with my audience, I want to make sure that you guys get the benefit of being a part of this audience. And so with the code word benefits, you can use that at artofmarriage.com. Just type in the word benefits. You're going to get 20% off. So go to artofmarriage.com, grab a copy, and watch God help your marriage go the distance. Now let's dive back into the conversation. Principle 2 of change. And this is a great one. Focus on the little things versus the big things. Focus on the things that all of us can do.
Yeah, exactly. I think our producer, Bruce, for this week was mean to you and said, things even Brian can do.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much.
He's like, if Brian can do it, anybody can do it. Thank you, Bruce. Very helpful and encouraging. He has the gift of encouragement. This book really did remind me of, remember Stephen Covey's book, The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People?
Why do you think I named it this?
Highly
Happy Marriages. Oh, it was pointing out that there's happy and then there's highly happy. Mm-hmm. There's effective people and there's highly effective people. Yeah. Absolutely.
And Covey's book went like wildfire because he was pointing out this is what great leaders do. This is what highly effective leaders do. And they're all simple stuff. Like you look through, that's what's so groundbreaking about it. Like I still remember that, live with the end in mind, putting the first things first. Highly effective leaders seek to understand someone more than just trying to be understood, which is a great principle for marriage.
There it is. Yeah, absolutely.
If you want to improve in any endeavor, any industry, you need to sharpen your own saw before you just keep working incessantly. So all of those things were incredibly groundbreaking, but they were simple, right?
Yeah.
And I think we've seen a ton of other books like that reinforce this idea, Atomic Habits and other things that it's like you can do a few things consistently over time, you can start seeing change.
Yep. And that's certainly the case, what we saw in the research for this particular book. One of the sort of pictures that is in my head whenever I think about this that was guiding it, it was guiding our approach to this, was something that happened in one of my graduate school classes. So I did half my classes at the business school, and one of the professors was really good about like basically demonstrating things, showing rather than telling.
I love that.
Yeah, which was amazing. And he was talking about change and, how do you get from here to there? And we were talking about all these different principles and different illustrations. And he had started off asking a question of somebody on the far side of the room. So picture a big auditorium with the students in it. And he had started off over on one side of the auditorium asking the student this question. And they dialogued a little bit. And then as he was teaching, he took another couple steps over to another side and, another student, another question, another couple steps over here and over here. And then at the end of the hour or whatever it was, he said, let's wrap up how we get to a big change.
Right.
And he said, where did I start? And everybody's like, what? Where did I start? When I first started talking, when I first started asking the students questions, and everybody was like, oh.
Yeah.
He started on the other side of the room. Nobody noticed him walking over because it was these little bitty steps all in one direction.
And even as a student, I'm sure as you're sitting there, you're not even processing he's moving.
No, we didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the very end where he said, where did I start? And everybody went, ah.
And I think we need to remember as we're going through these secrets, as you apply them, it may not feel like you're moving much.
Absolutely, it won't feel in some cases
Right.
where it's really not natural. Right.
Yeah. But if you keep doing them over time, it's amazing, what can happen in a marriage over a good time. What were some of the things that shocked you? I know there's some things that shocked you in this study. There always are. These aha moments.
Yeah, total aha moments. Well, okay, so all the secrets shocked me. Like all the things we're going to cover in this season, those were all quite surprising to me. But big picture, one of the things that was the most shocking was that these work if only one person did them.
Yeah.
That was huge to me. There's out of all of these, now in the book it's 12. In this season, we're going to give the bonus one, so it's 13. Out of these 13, there's only one that requires two people.
That's amazing.
Like all of the others, it is this massive impact if just one person starts this direction. So, and that's one of those things that sometimes you don't even notice, and somehow you find yourself, wow, why are we so much more happy? And you look back and you realize it was because of something that my spouse did and started a couple years ago. This actually happened to us, and we'll tell that story. Yeah. With me and Jeff will tell that story in one of our future episodes.
And that story, it's a great reminder. You don't have to wait. This is only going to work if both of us commit to it. It's like, nope. Actually, highly happy couples, one can commit and it works. One can. So yeah, I think there's going to be things that'll shock you and surprise you, but they are, again, little simple things. And if we could do those going in the right direction. So you think about that. So first of all, we're going to look forward in this season. Yep. We're also going to apply a few little things over time.
All in the same direction.
All in the same direction. Little steps in the same direction. And then this third principle of change, just to remember, because this is important, learning new skills doesn't come naturally. Yeah, none of them do. Important. Whether it's learning an instrument, learning a sport, it's not going to come naturally. I live in Florida. This is where Family Life is. We live in Florida. Jen and I moved here, and we said, if we're going to live in Florida, we're going to live near water. And so we decided to live about an hour away from the studio. We're recording this. Yeah. And so we're by the coast. We're 20 minutes from the ocean. We like to go there on Saturday mornings, take a walk. It's great. I love it. The only downside is I drive in about an hour, but it's all highway. It's great highway. Okay. Yeah. So I can deal with that. And I come in once or twice a week anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. Listen to podcasts, talk on the phone, get work done. It's great. I don't mind it. I haven't had a commute in years, and so this actually I found to be enjoyable. And I don't mind it at all. But this morning, and I can count on one hand how many times I-95 has been backed up in the last year and a half. So,
well, one of them was Monday night after we were recording, and I was heading over to their house for dinner.
That's right.
Brian and Jen, and because I love Jen, I love your wife. She's like, she would be one of my besties if we lived near each other. But we got there after a while. You're like, I haven't seen that kind of traffic.
I haven't, and that was really slight. Well, this morning, as we're getting ready to record this podcast, I get on the highway, and it's a parking lot. Oof. And I'm like, this isn't going to be good. They're expecting us soon and all this. So I ended up deciding, okay, well, I'm going to look at Apple Maps and see, which way I should go. Well, they point me towards Narcoossee. Now, for those that are I can already see Ely shaking her head. And there's this one other route I could take because there's only like 2 routes that I know of to get to the studio. One's highway. The other one is this road that gets us to Narcoossee. Now, Narcoossee, I think, is Native American for red lights. I'm pretty sure. And so
in my experience driving here from the hotel, I would agree with you.
Yes. I don't know if they're going for a Guinness Book of World Records to put as many red lights as they can in a 10-mile radius, but it is stop and go the whole way. And I'm like, that's not going to work. And so what I decided to do is I use Waze, especially in places that I don't know the area well. And because I know what Waze does, they operate on this principle of, number one, everybody hates traffic. Mm-hmm. That's their common belief. Every employee is like, everyone hates traffic. We're going to try to give everybody at least 3 minutes less time in traffic. That's their metric of success. And so they collect data. How they do that is they know that the only way to beat traffic is to talk to people that have beaten traffic. So they have these Wazers that are putting in when an accident happens, or when there's a roadblock, or when there's there's a construction site, and they also watch the data of where those people go to bypass the traffic. And so whatever algorithms they use to monitor those folks as they're all watching us. And so I put Waze in, and I was like, okay, that's not taking me Narcoossee. It's taking me a way I've never been before. And I don't know if you've ever used Waze.
Oh yeah.
But there's a moment when you're driving on Waze where you're like, this is going in the absolute wrong direction. I'm never going to make it there. And
you're sending me out into rural America.
Yeah, which is what I did.
Yes,
I didn't realize Florida had all this cattle. They had cattle and orange.
I love that so much.
And so I'm driving through the country. There's no lights. I'm on a 2-lane road. Nobody's on there.
You're driving by orange trees.
I'm smelling the citrus. It was just it was a great, relaxing time. I'm thinking about what we're going to talk about. But I was feeling like, is this really the right way? Could I really be going this way? And what I discovered was, I got in about the same amount of time that would have taken me on my highway commute, is that anytime we're going on a new road, it doesn't feel right. But we got to trust the people that actually have been there. Yeah. And that's really what you've helped us discover, is that you've discovered people that have avoided the roadblocks. They have avoided the gridlock, because none of us got married to be in gridlock with each other. We didn't get married to be miserable. And so we could either stay on that misery and keep doing what we're doing. We could maybe go a way that we know might work, but we know is going to be frustrating. Or we could try a new way from somebody that actually has been down that road before and says, you just need to keep doing that. So, I think when we think about that and learning some of these skills, they're not going to feel natural. They're not going to feel easy. You'll feel like you're going in the wrong direction. You might even feel like it's not fair. But I think if you keep doing it, you'll actually experience change. And just real quickly, we get excited about change. We love to get motivated. I see couples all the time leave a marriage conference and they're pumped about how we can change as a couple. I know you've experienced the same thing. Which is good. It's great. And it's great to be motivated, but there's a reason why we don't change. There's a reason why that excitement can flame out super quickly. And I just wanted to mention those real quick before we close.
Where we go back to our defaults.
Yeah, we go back to our default.
Yep.
We go back to what's always worked, or we think has always worked, or it may not work at all, but we don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
And so we stay in that gridlock with each other. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. We for example, some of our defaults, I know one of my defaults is that I tend to focus on the gaps of where things are wrong with Jen, or where things are wrong in my marriage, than where we're winning. It's natural for me to be critical about, I can't believe she just said that again, or I can't believe why is it that she worries about being late? It's not that big of a deal. And we focus on what's wrong rather than actually focusing on where we're winning.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Very, very common, which is, again, that counseling thing, which is sometimes important.
Sometimes
it is.
But we
can focus there. Exactly.
But it's good to step back and go, where are we winning right now?
Well, and the thing that's so important, one of the things we found in the research is that everybody is winning somewhere. Like everybody has these secrets, these 13 secrets that we identified. Everybody is doing some of them. And they just don't know that they matter. Once you know that it matters, you can do them more.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so we focus on the gaps more than when we're winning. We try to do too much at once. That's a big one. We get all this stuff from a marriage conference. Like, we're gonna be amazing. We're gonna be an amazing couple, and then it doesn't work, or we're doing too much. And what was it? And rather than just focusing on a few things.
One of the things that I like is remember the professor? Go little steps at a time in one direction, and you get to the same place.
That's right.
But if you try to run over there, you haven't built a habit.
Yeah.
And so build the habit.
Build the habit. We might go at it alone. And we're going to discover one of the One of the keys, one of the secrets of highly happy couples is marriage is not a solo sport.
Yeah.
They do it in community. In marriage, we tend to wait for the other spouse to move first. We play this game of marriage chicken where it's like, I'll change if you change.
Yep. I'll say I'm sorry once he says he's sorry.
Exactly. So we're going to help you break that cycle. Just like what you said, one of the surprising things is you start and then watch how God can change their heart.
Yep.
We overreact when they see a slip up. That's a big one. Because we're going to fail.
Yeah,
we're going to keep,
absolutely.
It's not like you learn these secrets and then suddenly we're perfect people.
Oh, we're going to slip up. And here's the thing. This ties into the next one, which is that we give up too easily. We don't play the long game. We don't persevere because we see something go wrong. We're like, oh, well, there goes that idea, right? Like, no, this is a game of one step at a time, perseverance. Okay, you slipped up. Keep going. Yeah. It's fine.
And I think another reason, and we miss this often, I think God reminds us of this, is that we just need to celebrate the wins. When we don't stop and just go, remember when I parted the Red Sea? Remember when I delivered you from Pharaoh's army? Remember when, in Deuteronomy alone, I think 16 times the word remember is repeated. And what's interesting is the most quoted book in the New Testament by Jesus is Deuteronomy.
Interesting.
There's something about just remembering and stopping and saying, remember when we, fought a different way? Remember when we, started spending more time together and just hanging out and how that has helped us become friends again?
It turns out that therapists, one of the things that a lot of really successful therapists do is there's this procedure called hope therapy. One of the things that they do as part of hope therapy is to get the couple to remember.
Yeah.
And to go, remember when, what we used to do when we really had a special connection.
Yeah.
Like, what did we do in those days? And it actually helps change your trajectory.
Right.
Yeah.
So we want to give couples, as you're listening to this, we want to give you some parting encouragement. And we'll do this at the end of every episode. Just here are your little steps. Here are your little steps to move in the right direction. And we'll do these fairly quickly. First of all, we just encourage you, again, make the first move. As you listen to each one of these secrets, don't hey, you need to listen to this. You need to, as somebody once said, pretend like there's a circle around your seat and focus on the person that's inside the circle. Or as my wife likes to say, focus on the circus that's inside. Focus on the person that's inside that circus. Focus on your own crazy. Deal with that. Make the first move, and maybe your little decision, your little action will help initiate an action in them. As the Bible says, it's God's kindness that leads us to repentance, not God's nagging that leads us to repentance. So that's the first one. Make the first move. What about the second one, Shaunti?
Second one, you have to start catching each other doing right, right? Like, again, it's really easy to notice the slip-ups.
Yeah.
But actually go, oh, it's not that Jen was late again. Or wait, was it you?
No, it's me that's late.
On.
She worries about people being late.
Okay, she worries about people. So one of the things is so she could go, it drives me nuts that he's, doesn't mind being late. But you know what? It's so cool how he always, when we actually get to the party, he instantly goes to whoever the host is and asks how their day was and asks, kind of engages in their life. And that's so cool. Thank you for doing that, Brian.
Yep.
Right? Catch each other doing really well, and that'll really help. And definitely give grace when you feel like they're doing wrong.
Yeah.
That's a key piece.
Because you would want the same
focusing.
thing. You'd want the same kind of grace. So first, that first one, make the first move, start catching each other right. As 1 Corinthians 13:5 says, keep no records of wrong. The positive way of saying that is keep a record of rights. Find where you're keeping a record of rights. But this third one is really important. Let us commit to the long game. Let's see this as a long-term process.
Yep. The analogy is the marathon, not the sprint.
Yep.
Right.
Which you've done before, which I realized today. I'd never known that you actually ran a marathon.
I did. Jeff and I were living in New York for the first 4 or 5 years of our marriage, and we said, when else are we going to get to run the New York City Marathon? And so, Jeff actually, believe it or not, he was the one who was training for it. And 2 months ahead of time, I went, when else am I going to run the marathon? And so I said, I'm going to run it with you. Now, I'm not a runner. I hadn't trained, hadn't done 5Ks, and I was obviously slightly nuts for thinking I would do this. It's amazing what you can do when you're in your 20s as opposed to later, right?
I think I'll just run a marathon.
I don't think that would work today. But here's the thing that I realized is it was a mindset shift. It was purposeful, and it was going, okay, I think I'll just try this. No, that's not going to work.
Right.
Especially if you're going to actually run a marathon, right? It might work for a 1 mile, it might work for a 5 mile, who knows? But I think I'll just try it. No, it is a purposeful, okay, here are my step-by-step things that I'm going to do. And one of the things that I also realized is that when I actually set out on that 26.2 miles.
Can't believe you did this.
In
8 weeks. Like,
I know.
I mean, even then, it
crazy.
feels a little bit like almost like at the starting line, I think I'll wake up and go run a marathon today. But 8 weeks.
8 weeks of training, right? And so, but when I started out on the starting line, I recognized there was a mindset of seeing this as, I'm not going to take this in like 5-mile chunks and see how it works. The same way we can't do that in marriage.
Right.
Let's go for 5 years and see how it works, right? Like, it doesn't work that way. You have to have this sort of perseverance mindset of going, no, actually, as I'm starting this out, this is a long, and for marriage, a lifelong process. Because that's the only way that you're going to be able to get there. I mean, let me tell you, believe it or not, in the New York City Marathon, the last 2 miles up Fifth Avenue are uphill. The last 2 miles of a 26.
Which you don't think about New York City as having hills because it's all concrete jungle anyway.
Yeah, you don't. But I discovered once I actually started running, Manhattan is an Algonquin word, and it means island of hills. You
never knew that.
No idea. There are a lot of hills in Manhattan. And yeah, they hurt.
Yeah.
And there are those moments that if you don't start out with the perseverance mindset, it'll get you.
Yeah. You'll just give up. And you were telling me a little bit of that Jeff, who was more of a runner than you, he actually decided it was going to be more important to finish together than to finish ahead and probably set a record that he could have set for himself, a personal record or whatever he wanted. He's like, no, we need to win together in this. And you ended up saying that you looked at it, what he actually ran, which was 28.2.
He did.
Because you said, neither one of you felt like you could stop. Because if you stop, and I don't know, I've never run a marathon, but I can imagine that if I stopped running, I would stop altogether.
Yes,
and so you kept going. So his gait's a little bit longer than yours. He would go out and head, and then he'd run back. And he'd go out ahead, which I think is a great...
He would get like 4, 5, 6 blocks ahead and turn around and run back. And so we added it up later of how much did that add? It was 2 miles. Yeah.
And I think it's a great image of the gospel. It's like Jesus isn't follow me and hope you keep up.
No, that is good.
Follow me, but I'm going to be with you always.
Yeah.
I'm going to run with you. I'm going to encourage you along the way. I'm going to be there with you. And so there's going to be times, I think, for one spouse, some of these secrets will come more naturally, or even if it's not totally naturally, they'll just do it a little bit better. And you can either go, why can't you use sign language? We were reading about it in the book, and we start getting mad, or why can't we just hang out more like it talks about in the book? And it's like we start demanding versus going, okay, how do I serve them in this process? How do I run together? How do I win together rather than just run ahead? I like what Chinese philosopher I'm probably not saying this right, but Lao Tzu said, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Yep.
And so that's what we're going to encourage you to do. Look at these. You're not going to be able to do them all. Like, the goal isn't that you apply 13 secrets. The goal is pick a couple and start going, let's commit to the journey the whole way. Cheer for each other along the way, do a few things right over time, and let's look forward and not just look back. And so as we think about this, the reason, and I think this is important, the reason isn't so that at the end of this season you'll become a highly happy couple. Like, that's a byproduct. The whole point is that we become highly happy couples so that we can share that love of God to the world, that we can become that image, that picture, so that people could go, because we all know those couples. When you think about who are the couples that love each other really well, you don't have to think about it too long.
Yeah.
There's a couple in your mind, and you go, and then when you examine their life, it's like they're actually loving each other like God loves us. And we want to be little pictures of the gospel, little posters on the wall of people's hearts where they think they got something that I want.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm hoping this season will produce in couples.
I am so hopeful that people will both see that these things, they make a difference and they lead you further and further into that enjoyment of marriage that I think God has for us, and that we then get to show a watching world that following Jesus makes a difference.
Yep. So that's good. So season 4, we're going to help you rediscover the benefits and the joys of saying I do with these highly happy couples and the secrets that you discovered. And so Shaunti, thanks for your work in this.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us for this episode. If you enjoy this podcast, please hit like or subscribe. And please leave a review or a comment. It just helps get the word out to more couples so that they could find hope for their own marriage. And listen, if you haven't picked up Shaunti's book that we're talking about all this season long, The Surprising Secrets of Highly Happy Marriages, you're going to want to get that and maybe grab one to give away, because that's really what we're about here at Family Life. We want to help you experience oneness so that you could impact your corner of the world. And listen, we've got a lot more help and hope for your marriage and family at FamilyLife.com. You can find other articles, you can find podcasts, you can find shows, small group resources. You'll want to check that out at FamilyLife.com.